How's it going, everybody? This is Dailies to Downloads. My name is Chad. With me is Eric, and we're back with you this week, and we're going to discuss some of our favorite films of the year. And let's jump right into it. We have a few each that we're going to discuss, and then I'm sure we'll touch on some of the others that we might not go into as much detail about. These movies are not going to be in any really particular order. We're not going to do a countdown or anything like that.
Yeah.
But I will start off. One of the movies that I really, really loved from this year was called Never, Rarely, Sometimes, Always. And it was directed by Eliza Hittman, written and directed by Eliza Hittman. And basically, it follows a pair of teenage girls from rural Pennsylvania who travel to New York City to seek out medical help after one of them becomes pregnant. So there are more than one movie this year that talk about unwanted pregnancies or teen pregnancy or abortion. And to me, this one, the way it unfolded was really, it's a quiet, really organic movie that tackles this subject in a very unforced manner. Basically, the director is showing you what it's like for a girl to carry out what she feels like she must do, and along the way, she conveys how tricky the laws are in different states and the hoops that you have to jump through, both medically and financially. And to me, there was a lot of scenes in this movie that were really compelling and very moving, but it really is a raw glimpse at what it means to be a teenage girl by and large as well, not just about the abortion part. So yeah, I was really absorbed by this one. Eric, did you ever get a chance to see this?
I did, yeah. And I feel like I've thought of that movie as a time marker of the pandemic, because I had done this like career talk thing with Eliza Hittman, because Never Really Sometimes Always opened on the Friday before everything shut down. And I think it opened like at the Angelica in New York and LA, and then everything changed by we. There was already talk of like a virus.
That's true. When you mentioned that it was kind of marker for the start of it, it is
Yeah,
true.
absolutely. And at that point, I remember she was very bummed out because, I mean, how much our world has changed in the past 9 months. That like they didn't do the streaming thing, so it's like, well, now do we just, it's pulled from theaters because everything's shut down, do we just wait until the summer or the fall when the virus is gone and then we can be able, all
Right.
these ideas that had to quickly shift. So I'm glad that uh in a way, I don't want to say benefited, but obviously more people are being able to discover it
Right.
through an online platform. But yeah, I think this is a very strong film, and she's also, she's very good with young actors, and this is her third film. The other two, It Felt Like Love and Beach Rats, also deal with teens, and usually like some in very raw situations, and not like in an icky way. Like It Felt Like Love is about a young teens girls
Right.
first sexual experiences. Beach Rats is about a young boy, teen who's afraid to like come out, and but it's not scandalous kind of way, but it is something
Right.
that more mature. It doesn't feel like an adult's take on a younger generation. It feels very
Right.
like,
Absolutely.
yeah, and I think that she's very much in tune, has a right ear for that, and she's, it's exciting to see what comes next. I mean, she teaches as well, and I'm glad that, the performance is great, and it's great use of sneaking into Port Authority in that. And there's a good sequence in there where it's like real. I like that New York kind of like catch it as you go
Mm.
before we
Yeah.
get
Yeah.
before we get kicked out of Port Authority, before we get kicked out of wherever, on the fly kind of filming. It's good for
And
that.
I mentioned it, like the synopsis I had was one that I got from a site, and it said rural Pennsylvania. It's really not rural Pennsylvania. It's more of like a suburb or like a lower class area.
Yeah.
certainly areas. And I grew up in PA, so it felt very real to me in that way. Now I have no idea where in PA it was shot, but it was certainly, it brought back memories for me because you see a lot of towns like that, and the journey is significant here. And I would say, without giving any spoilers away, the scene in particular where you see where the title comes from, to me, is among the most compelling scenes of the year, for me anyway. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, abortion will never cease to be a hot button topic. It will always be a controversial topic, and to me, this movie is good. Like, it is informative. You will walk away from it learning more about the process, even if it's not something you necessarily approve of. So,
And that is actually a theme. I'll use that as a segue, because abortion is actually, it has felt more of like a prominent theme in movies uh, this year. And like I was like, oh yeah, it's in like this and this and this, and then we got the uh, this was all through my mind as the Amy Coney Barrett Senate confirmation hearing, pro-life stuff. So I was like, oh, look at all these connections to whatever. One I will, there are two that I would mention, but I'll just say one right now. Would be the Invisible Man remake, which by even mentioning that there's an abortion aspect of it is somewhat of a spoiler, but that's okay, guys. It's been out for a while. But I think that was one where I went in with like zero expectations, and because it was the second in the Universal. Well, they had announced a couple of years ago as like their own kind of extended universe for their classic horror movie monsters,
right.
which crashed and burned right away. Serves them right for announcing like the entire plan up front. Um, yeah, I remember there was like a publicity photo with like, and then Johnny Depp will play blah blah blah, and the Wolfman will be,
It was
and
in
they,
vogue at the time because of Marvel, I think, but
yeah,
it
yeah,
it just didn't. It wasn't it like that sort of approach isn't going to work for every universe.
yeah. But that was like this term extended universe has become a thing now because of
Yeah,
Marvel, and now DC chases it, and then all these other. But so that was just to say that there was a version of the Mummy with Tom Cruise that was meant to lead into all these other ones, but the Mummy bombed, so they gave up and they said we're not going to go that route. And so the Invisible Man is, yes, it's not really a remake. Yes, it is a Universal movie because they own the rights to that property and that concept, but it is in no way connected to anything else. And in truth be told, like some of the things I like most about, have you saw it, right?
I
Have you?
did. Yeah,
Yeah. Some of the things I like most about it too, like don't really have anything to do with the Invisible Man aspects
right.
of the movie. Like it is probably more of like a metaphor for like what we call now like gaslighting, like this kind of idea, like is she going crazy, or
Is she not right?
is she not, like her lover had committed suicide, I believe, right? Because she leaves him because it's a very abusive relationship, and blah blah blah. And a lot of things happen from there. But it's actually, I thought, very smartly told. And I think Elizabeth Moss is really good in it. And then like it was a nice surprise. It was one that I was glad to see, and it was actually refreshing that um, it doesn't feel connected to anything else. Right? It's not setting
Right.
up for a sequel. It's not anything else. It has a perfect ending as it is, and yeah, I was impressed as
I'm glad
going.
you mentioned that one because, I mean, for pure entertainment value, it really exceeded my expectations. As like you, I went into it with not expecting much. I really didn't. I mean, I think after it got a little bit of buzz is when I did decide to check it out, and I just kind of bought the digital code in one of the groups that I'm in, and I'm glad I did. I like Elizabeth Moss a lot. I have watched her career grow leaps and bounds since Mad Men, and she's been doing a lot of great work. And I didn't expect this to be that interesting, but it really was. It was well directed by Lee Wannell, and I yeah, I mean, I echo everything you said in terms of the pace was really good, and it wasn't just a cut and dry remake or a telling of an Invisible Man story. It wasn't anything like Hollow Man,
No,
which
no, no.
which is more of an action take on the Invisible Man uh, theme.
Yeah, I feel like Hollow Man would be more of a faithful, what you would expect from like a faithful remake of Invisible Man.
Right,
Whereas this almost feels like, I'm making this up, but it almost feels like they had a screenplay and then they put like Invisible Man elements onto it. But
right,
like, there's a very strong through line of this abusive relationship that she's in, and there's a brother-in-law character who's a lawyer, and he has a prominent reason for being in the movie as well. And then there's these Invisible Man elements to it.
right,
But all of it kind of feels a little secondary, or like the way it kind of um, builds up to these really cool set pieces.
yeah,
Of a friend being murdered at dinner with or the finale where they're very intimate small conversations that yeah, I'm
it's
surprised.
very it has a lot of creepy, unsettling moments
Yeah,
to it
yeah,
that work the way everything is laid out. And yeah, no, it was like you were saying about the I think you mentioned the set, like it has some really vivid set design.
yeah. It's a very movie house, very like
Yeah, true.
fancy cold steel. Everything's transparent glass and
Yeah,
everything else, and there's this damn dog that's still there and blah blah blah. And it's very movie in that regard. But yeah, it was just cool, and I'm glad that it did well, and hopefully, I know we are going. I think Lee Wannell is actually doing a Wolfman movie next.
yeah.
I think Ryan Gosling. Um, who knows? I will give it a shot based on the Invisible Man quality. So
Yeah, and the Wolfman, it'll be interesting to see what happens there. I mean, that genre obviously is much more populated than Invisible Man stories are, and we've seen a lot of different takes on people transforming into werewolves. So
yeah,
it'll be
and there's
interesting to see.
and I think, sorry, I was belaboring it, but I just think also like there's this notion to like ground it in like realism and
Right.
reality. Like the Wolfman is going to be I don't know, running for city government, but he just every time there's a full moon, he just transform. Like there's this need to like do that in a lot of these movies. And Invisible Man is serious, but it is also kind of like darkly humorous in enough
Sure.
aspects that it's not so deadly serious that it becomes ridiculous as well. So,
And a shout out, which it's not my second movie, but it would have made my additions at the end of this show, Shirley, which also
yeah,
has Elizabeth
yeah.
Moss in it, which I also liked a lot.
Mhm.
But my my second movie, although we've agreed so far, Eric, I don't know if you've even seen this one, let alone if you liked it or not.
I'll still have an opinion.
But my second one is Palm Springs,
Oh yeah.
and that was directed by Max Barbacow. I hope I'm saying that name right.
Mhm.
But it covers a carefree character named Niles and the reluctant maid of honor Sarah, who have a chance encounter at a Palm Springs wedding, and things kind of get more complicated when they discover they're unable to escape the venue or themselves, etc., etc. That's very IMDb-ish summary, not my own creation. But this is a time loop movie, and the people that have not been as into it as others just kind of say, "Oh, it's just like Groundhog Day." And I would have to, although I like Groundhog Day a lot, I think that I mean that's a Harold Ramis classic in many ways. But aside from the time loop thing, I do think there are differences, and I liked Palm Springs a lot in terms of a comedy, let alone a romantic comedy, which is there have not been very many movies over the past few years that have really made me laugh or really had me buy the romance in as much, but I liked this movie a lot. I'm partial to time travel stories, and to me this one really had an interesting take on it. I thought that the pacing was really well done, and they kind of they to me they cover the cliches with the concept in a really neat way. I like Kristen Milioti. I think that she has a lot of chemistry with Andy Samberg, and yes, I would say that even though it is similar to Groundhog Day, I think that this one is more of a romance up front, and is more blatant with its comedy in many ways. But I also think it's different in terms of attitude and execution. And yeah, it's Andy Ciara did the screenplay. It's really well written, and I liked it a lot. So Eric, have you seen this one?
I have, yeah. That was another chat thing I did with the filmmakers for that, because yeah, those two guys went to AFI together, and Andy Ciara, the screenwriter, I believe his agent was the same as the Lonely Island crew, which is the Andy Samberg crew. So
Right.
that's how that kind of moved up the chain. And I think that when it comes to the time loop concept, I can't imagine, like, now as I'm trying to race through my brain, that it originated with Groundhog Day. I know
Right.
that, like, that's always the one that's cited, but I'm like, there are different elements of things like Christmas Carol and stuff. Like, yeah, they're not exactly timely, but these same It's a Wonderful Life, all these kind of things that
Right.
are doing the same kind of concepts that have now we just call it the Groundhog Day
Right.
formula. But I don't. But that can be done in many different ways. Yeah, I guess it also just depends. Like, I am not necessarily the biggest fan of Andy Samberg necessarily. Like, I don't dislike him, but
Neither am I really.
yeah. And so it's a little bit broader. In some, the J.K. Simmons asked, there's a guy who's keeps trying to kill him or does kill him, and every time he kills him, like, it resets. And then
Yeah.
the next day starts over again.
Yeah.
There's like a goat in there with like they're dinosaurs at one point. Um, but yeah, I think that the most creative thing for me when watching these kind of movies is how do they because it's all like in the very very minute like detail, right? Like, because we're
Right.
seeing the same scene 5 times, but there has to be one little difference like each time, right? So like
Right.
that's where I feel like that's the fun of these kind of movies, where what is the one detail that's different or that's off that makes us, and that is the most, I feel like, where the creativity comes out in terms of filming these kinds of plots. And but I like about it too is that it's, even though they are stuck in this loop that is that they can't get out of. So I mean, I guess that is their livelihood on the line. It still feels relatively low stakes.
Yeah.
Um, so, which I think is good too, because some parts of Groundhog Day get very very serious, and
Right.
to me it gets a little lame at times. But whereas this, I feel like it knows. I kind of like it more in the sense that it knows what it is, and
Yeah.
kind of works with it. It never tries to really. I mean, there are some profound moments that come with any kind of existentialist kind of quandary about repeating things in life, and are we just going through the motions of our lives, and how do we
Right.
break up the monotony that comes with just by putting in the genre. Um, and a lot of good, it got good.
But it doesn't get bogged down by that stuff, is what
No,
you're
no, not at
saying.
all.
Right.
No, no. There's a real energy to it, and a really good game cast of is Peter Gallagher is like the dad of June Squibb shows up for a
Right.
couple of minutes. It all comes back to the wedding, the reception, right? And I think that's
And I
yeah,
forgot to mention that this was on Hulu,
it was, yeah,
which you
it
don't
was.
hear about that often.
It was purchased at Sundance. It was the most expensive Sundance acquisition by 69 cents.
Wow.
Now
That's
69 cents because haha. But also to kind of like, because the previous, it was 17 million and like 69 cents or something like that. It was
did
just
they
to
do that
really.
deliberately to make it the most expensive?
Yes. So the 69 was just a little, sarcastic joke, but they wanted to make it the biggest acquisition at Sundance because then that's going to get you so many headlines just with that news alone.
Right.
Also, the previous highest was for Nate Parker's Birth of a Nation. If we remember what happened with him in that film, it was kind of good to erase that in a degree, to a degree.
Right.
And so yeah, so this was one of Hulu's. They're going to probably be, now with Sundance coming up again, strong players for the next year to come. I mean, Shirley, you mentioned, was also purchased by Hulu.
Right.
There were a few others. Yeah.
Right.
Um,
Well, Eric, what's your next pick?
so this one, I'm actually going to stick with somewhat of that abortion. It's not a theme, but an element. Uh,
Do we want that to be the theme of our show?
Yeah, I guess it's not a theme. It's something that happens in a lot of these films, I guess, or is talked about. Is a film called Swallow, which was it's crazy to think about. Like, it actually had its world premiere at Tribeca 2019, where it was then purchased by IFC and released theatrically, also right before the shutdown in March of 2020. And that was a debut feature by a filmmaker named Carlo Mirabella Davis, which was anyway. To give a quick rundown of the plot, is that this woman who is in a very thankless, loveless marriage that's somewhat psychologically controlling and abusive, and she begins to eat dangerous objects, like a pin or other sharp objects that are. It's a disorder known as pica, which exists, but it's rare, I guess, and not really talked about. But it was like causing bodily harm to yourself by swallowing dangerous objects internally, et cetera, et cetera. And that was somewhat based on the filmmaker's grandmother, who didn't suffer from that, but she had like a really strong OCD back in like the 40s and 50s, and her husband um, pushed for a forced lobotomy. And it was just kind of like succumbing to this thankless marriage and having your own issues, disorder, whatever, used as a crutch against you, I guess. And so this is kind of a movie like that, and it's somewhat genre-y, somewhat thriller-y, but it's a really strong lead performance by Haley Bennett. There are also some supporting actors who people would recognize, like Elizabeth Marvel, Dennis O'Hare, a lot of faces you would know. And it becomes, she eventually gets pregnant, and she's swallowing these items, and that's dangerous. And but her husband is really corporate-y douchebag kind of guy, and things kind of happen from there. But it's a very small movie. But like, I think when you describe it to people, they're like, "Ooh, I don't know, swallowing sharp objects."
I was just thinking as you're like, because I honestly, this is on a list of movies that I really want to see even
Yeah,
before you mentioned it. And even listening to you talk about it makes me want to see it more. But I can
yeah,
only imagine telling telling my wife about this. Like if she were to overhear this plot, I can guarantee it would be okay. You can watch that one on your own.
yeah. It's not like exploitive or like graphic in any way.
Right.
It's not like, there are a few. They said like at Tribeca there are a few screenings where like someone fainted or whatever, but not. But it's really, it's the idea, right? It's the idea of seeing someone put something sharp and then and it cuts away, but like, okay, that stays with you. It's very you. And then how the movie grows and she kind of grows along with it. It's really important. Same kind of idea though, in the sense of like Invisible Man, taking control also of what's in your own body.
Right.
While it seems like the male is dominating your life and the child to come. So it all felt like that recurring. topic, theme, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
It's a similarly shared viewpoint, I guess.
All right.
But, yeah.
Well, yeah, I'll definitely have to check that one out now.
Yeah.
So another one I want to highlight now. Normally, Eric knows this because he would be right with me at 411. But in the past, I would always, when I would make my top 10 lists, I would always separate feature films and documentaries.
Oh,
But
right.
this is the first year, well, on Letterboxd anyway, where I just kind of looped everything into one list, which I'd not done before. But it was such a weird year. I felt like, why not? And
Everything has changed, and now with every film we're talking about being streaming in some way or another, right?
you're
Right.
right.
So it's like, what is film? What is TV? What is internet content? What are labels, guys? Like,
Stay tuned to a future episode. Yeah.
telling you.
But so the next one I'm going to talk about is a documentary, and it's called Rewind, and it's directed by Sasha Joseph Newlinger. And there are a lot of documentaries, and I'll mention a few of them as we go along here, where you could really say the documentary deserves the description of brave. And to me, this is certainly one of them. It's covers the director himself, Sasha Joseph Newlinger, who's digging through a collection of his father's home videos, and he begins to reconstruct the story of his childhood and exposes all the abuse that was passed through the generations. And it's not an easy topic. It's not an easy documentary to watch, but it is extremely powerful, and it's really passionately put together. There's so much emotion as you're watching it because the director himself is going through these things. And as he kind of gradually peels back the layers of the onion of his life, it just becomes, it's horror after horror as it goes along. But it's really focused, it's very engrossing. And I would, despite the fact that it's not a topic a lot of people want to discuss or watch a movie about, I would really recommend it for its courage and the fact that the person was able to see this through to the end. So Eric, I don't know if you saw this one, but
I haven't seen it. I've heard it, and I'm sure if you mentioned this already, but it's is there like also like home video footage, like that's the rewind aspect. I mean, that's the title. It's like
yeah,
also
so he interviews people, and he also like kind of covers it by going through old photos and explaining, the story of his childhood and as how he figured out certain things, and confronts people about certain things. And
okay.
it's really well done in that way. And just to kind of add a little bit on my comment of documentaries that are brave, another good one is On the Record, which was really really well done. And
These are all heavy, heavy looking back on childhood things on the record. Right? Is another yeah.
yeah. And another one is Welcome to Chechnya, which is really really good and incorporates this technology of, kind of shielding these people's faces to protect their identity, I should say. Basically, it's that Welcome to Chechnya covers kind of an ongoing anti-LGBTQ program that's in this kind of Russian Republic, and basically these people are trying to get to safety. And it's just, it's incredible the courage of some of these documentaries it took to make them, which the Academy loves that type of stuff. So I would imagine it'll be a stacked deck in that category.
Yeah, and just thinking in terms of bravery and thinking like almost things shot in real time. There's one that really stood out to me. It's very good, but it's also due to the immediacy, called 76 Days, which are the first 76 days in Wuhan after the
Oh
virus
yeah.
is identified. Which you're not going to get that. Like, yes, I know we're all pandemic. Well, we're not out of it, but like we're all fatigued with pandemic stuff. and seeing people crying in hospitals, and I get that we're inundated with it day in, day out right now. But 76 Days has been interesting just by that the immediacy and how it gets really really brutal in ways that I don't think you get on the normal like tell the news stuff. That is worth watching for that, and to quickly turn it around within 4 months and have it premiere Toronto back in September. Like, I mean, it's pretty incredible how they had to, you know, and like it was like two or three filmmakers, two like in China, and so they could send the footage over the Wi-Fi, you know, and things like that. And then one of the filmmakers is here in New York, and so you know, working very quickly to get this out. It's kind of crazy that we've now been in the pandemic long enough to have had several movies come out about it. That is, there's another one that's on the Hulu one, Totally Under Control, the Alex Gibney movie, but that also now feels out of date because so much has happened the past 2 months since that movie came out. But I think on the documentary side, I guess this counts as a documentary, but this is also what makes the whole description something that I've seen a lot of people putting on their list, and I don't know if this what you would call this, but it is the Spike Lee filmed version of David Byrne's American Utopia, which was a Broadway production based on David Byrne's album American Utopia, and it was essentially a concert of David Byrne and in a Broadway theater, and Spike Lee filmed it over 2 performances to get different angles and etc. So he's done this before in a couple of other shows, and a couple of other, like there was a Kobe Bryant documentary of a full Lakers game, you know, different kind of ways of doing that, and it is a really awesome production. It's on HBO Max, and you know, I kind of go back and forth with how much of it is due to Spike Lee's contributions to it, how much of that is the power of the actual staged Broadway production itself and the original theatrical director. Nonetheless, whatever you want to say that it is it is a documentary? Is it just a filmed concert, filmed Broadway production, whatever? You will get a lot of joy watching it. Whatever it is, it's something that I have gone back to, and it's a very, like, if you've seen like the Talking Heads documentaries that Jonathan Demme has made, and Stop Making Sense is the biggest. You know, it's not necessarily reinventing the wheel, but it is one of the. I am very hard on like some of these concert docs. This was a nice highlight.
Was that your pick?
That would be, yeah. Yes, that was, whatever it is. It's definitely one of the more memorable things I've seen this year, that I've streamed as these awful.
I need to watch that.
Yeah,
and you know, I like stuff like this, like that one, and I think Hamilton. Like the conversation has been brought up whether or not these productions are eligible for awards, and I don't know.
Hamilton is like for the Golden Globes, it's going to be in like the musical comedy categories.
Really?
And yeah. But not like for the Oscars and stuff. They all have their own different weird eligibility stuff.
It's great. Don't get me wrong. Hamilton is great, but awards.
There is a precedent in 1975. I forgot the actor's name now, but it was a one-man Broadway production where he played Harry Truman, sorry, you know, our former president, and it was filmed and it was put into movie theaters, and he was nominated for the Oscar for Best Actor.
Oh wow!
Which I think now they've had new rules where that can't happen. I think, but this would be the year where something weird like that.
Can you imagine though? How crazy it would be, you know.
It would be strange, but I mean, I also think that brings up not to go too much of a tangent, but this idea of a lot of people are really getting behind the main actress in the Borat sequel for awards consideration, And yes, she is an actress, but she's interacting with real people in real situations that they are not scripted. And does that mean that everyone is qualifies is eligible from that movie, including the real people, or is it just the two actors? Because I think Rudy Giuliani's got a shot. Uh, I just think the supporting actor campaign should
It
begin.
makes your head want to explode. I was not a big fan of the Borat sequel, but certainly that actress did well with whatever she was given.
Yeah,
I have no complaints about her specifically.
I mean, I would be shocked if the Academy goes for that.
I would be as well. They play things too safe. I feel like
Yeah,
for that to be there. There's so much other talent that they
yeah.
could probably put there. But hey, like you said, it's a weird year. So, and
I mean, it'd be cool, like just for the unprecedentedness of it.
right.
It'd be
And
kind of
certainly I should add to, if we're looking at stuff that we watched in 2020, Hamilton was one of those things for me anyway. I
so
saw it for the first time on Disney Plus. So
yeah, which was cool. I mean, they try to replicate the intermission and everything,
yeah.
And to get the real Broadway experience, for Hamilton, I after I watched it on Disney Plus, I threw $500 out the window. So it really felt like I was there, and then
Lin-Manuel Miranda, he appreciates that.
the whole thing, and then I cramped my leg room, just so everything, guy
you wanted to recreate that experience as much as possible.
the entire thing, somebody kept coughing behind me. It was beautiful. It really felt like I was there.
Well, I should add, now on Letterboxd, when I log movies there, like they also have, miniseries that you can put on there. And now that's pretty much strictly a movie site, but they do allow those things. And if I were to include some of those in this list, it would be a little bit different, because I love The Last Dance, and now admittedly I'm a Bulls fan, but I did like The Last Dance, and I also liked, the best anything that I watched from 2020. I would probably say would be The Queen's Gambit, which I enjoyed a lot. And I don't know I know you're not as much of a TV guy, Eric, but
I haven't seen it. I mean, I know a lot of people,
but it's
it's
good. Some other ones on my list that I would recommend people checking out. The Assistant, I liked, which I didn't expect to like very much, but I thought that it was really good the way it was. And again, it was very quiet film, but powerful in its own ways.
And very reserved in what it implies and what it doesn't say outright, I guess. And a great scene. I think that's a good selection. I feel like one of the best scenes of the year, where she's talking with the HR guy. That's a great scene, because it's a very infuriating scene, because HR is not there to help the employee; they're there to help the company.
Right.
And I feel like it's really illustrated in a good way in that 10-minute sequence.
Absolutely, I agree. Going the other direction in terms of crazy off the wall movies, I really liked Color Out of Space.
What is that?
With Nicolas Cage.
Oh, I haven't seen that.
Oh man, like sci-fi horror, it's right up your alley. So I definitely recommend that. It's insane, and Nicolas Cage is in such an odd point of his career right now. When he's doing movies like Color Out of Space, and then doing a swear words show on Netflix, like he's a fearless individual for sure. That's
Richard Stanley. All right, I'm looking it up.
I definitely recommend it. And we haven't really talked about animated movies. Being that I have 3 kids, certainly animated movies are always a regular feature in the household. And we just watched recently Soul, which technically I watched it in 2021, but I liked that one a lot. Pixar did that and did Onward. Soul is certainly better if you're comparing the two, but.
And yeah, I liked it. I think there were times where it felt a little bit reminiscent of Inside Out, where I think it worked a little bit better in Inside Out. Some of those same elements, but and all the Knicks slander and stuff. But there is like some good Knicks stuff in the barbershop in the background, and Also, I should recommend one of the co-writers on that on Soul, Kemp Powers, who's a playwright, and his most famous play was turned to a movie that's directed by Regina King, One Night in Miami, which is gonna, by the time you watch this episode, it's gonna be on Amazon Prime.
Right.
That's very much worthwhile. It's been a big year for him. But yeah, I like Soul. Some of the other Realm stuff, it's a little too kiddie for me.
Right.
I like that it's this 9 Inch Nails guys for the score for those parts.
Yep. Trent
Um,
Reznor and Atticus Ross, they did good
yeah,
work.
yeah. So that was cool. And I mean,
We hadn't talked about the Knicks joke, you and I.
the next
I
joke was
forgot to
funny.
text you about it, but I thought of you immediately.
Yeah, I saw it on Twitter, and then like Ken Powers, like, oh yeah, I've been a fan since 1970, whatever, when I was born. So I included that in there, and and those, I like those like aspects of it's very specific, and the One Night in Miami, based on these 4 African American icons meeting in a hotel in Miami one night. You can see that like also in Soul, like because Muhammad Ali is one of them, and
Right.
there's Muhammad Ali gag, there's Muhammad Ali posters in the barber shop. Like there are all these kind of cool details that if you watch it on your phone, you might miss. But like I just think the whole like architect, like it really does look like Queens. That stuff is cool. Whereas the other stuff, like it's supposed to have no character when they're just like blobs.
Right.
But yeah, no, I like that one.
If you're in the mood for an acid trip, La Casa Lobo is just a crazy animated movie, not animated in terms of CGI, more of a paper mache type thing. I really can't even give a synopsis of that one. I would just recommend. It's called The Wolf House.
Yeah,
But I certainly recommend checking that one out. And the last one I'll just quickly mention here is the Vast of Night, which is a sci-fi movie on Amazon. It was great this year to see some of these movies be so easily accessible. And we haven't really mentioned where a lot of these are available, but Vast of Night is available on Amazon Prime. On the Record, I mentioned earlier, is on HBO Max. So you can seek these movies out. Some of them you'll have to rent or buy perchance on iTunes or wherever you buy. But yeah, The Vast of Night is a really good kind of old school sci-fi drama, which was well done. Eric, are there any other titles that you wanted to mention?
I'll just a few other quick ones. One, thinking of Amazon Prime, Time is another good documentary by a filmmaker, Garrett Bradley. It's probably the front runner for the Oscar for Best Documentary, about a man who's been incarcerated for a number of years, and his wife, who's the years and years that it takes to get him out, and it's a lot of like home video footage interspersed with the currently. It's all black and white. It's a very lyrical kind of piece, worthwhile on Amazon. One time we should talk about, it's like I feel like Amazon Prime is the hardest to find some of these things if you're
Yeah.
if you're not searching for the title. Just like the Amazon Prime layout, I feel is kind of not.
Yeah, no, I
Helpful.
agree. I don't like their layout either. And I like anytime I'm searching for a movie on there, like I have to search for it.
Yeah.
They don't do as good of a job of advertising some of their exclusives that Netflix does.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would also mention on HBO Max, Let Them All Talk, which was the new Steven Soderbergh one.
Oh yeah,
Which,
yeah.
I didn't, Steven Soderbergh, I'm very hot or cold on because
Yeah, no, we've had so many discussions about him in the past. It's
I don't know, like for everyone I like, there's like 4 that I don't like at
yeah.
all. Like he makes them super fast and very innovative in the way he makes them. And this one is primarily on an actual cruise ship that was shot in like September of 2019 on a real cruise ship with real passengers. They knew that there was a movie being shot, but it's all happening. Yeah, it's really fun. Meryl Streep, Candice Bergen, Diane Wiest, Lucas Hedges. It's just like a very kind of laid back, loungy comedy for a while that becomes somewhat more poignant as it goes on. Another one on Netflix is terrible title. The 40-year-old version, not the 40-year-old virgin, but it's the title's rough. But it's about this African American playwright. She's about to turn 40. She's single. She doesn't have many friends, and she turns to getting into like freestyle battle rapping. It's not like an 8 Mile kind of thing. Like it's a comedy, and there's a lot of poignant. And the lead actress is the actual writer and director. And it's a very scrappy black and white, shot on 35 millimeter film though.
I've heard of that. I'll have to check that one out.
Yeah, like it's kind of you probably don't want to be associated, but it's like it's somewhat Woody Allen-y esque. I don't know if he probably doesn't want that attached to it, but it's a kind of like old school New York vibe to it. And Minari, which is about this Korean family in Indiana, a Korean American family that's moved to Indiana, and they're kind of like being integrated into not I want to say Indiana, but it was actually I want to say Alabama or somewhere in the American heartland in the South. And it's that kind of like culture shock, and also just the very real struggles of being a Korean American family in the 1980s, based somewhat on the actual Lee Isaac Chung's real upbringing. And it's a very understated, good drama that will be more widely available, I think, in a few weeks.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you know what? As you were talking there was some that I forgot to mention. One being Driveways, which was the last performance of Brian Dennehy, and I really hope, it's doubtful, but I really hope that some of the awards remember his performance, because I thought it was really well done.
That's another. There are these panels now of like Korean American filmmakers, and it'll be Lee Isaac Chung and Andrew An. Right. So usually like are the two representatives of this year that are. I feel like Driveways are unfortunately like too small.
Yeah.
I think it's now on Showtime streaming.
Oh, is it really?
I think so.
Oh, wow.
Or it was like within the past month, but yeah.
And on the Korean note, I also watched just today. Actually, I watched House of Hummingbird, which was very good. It's definitely worth checking out. And we almost got through the show without talking about Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, which is very good. And as I was watching it, and I liked it a lot. I thought it was really, really great. And as I was watching it, it reminded me of a movie with James Gandolfini, and Enough Said, not in terms of plot, but in terms of the fact that you look at Chadwick Boseman, who obviously we knew he was a talented actor, but when you looked at Enough Said with James Gandolfini, it brought a whole new side of his performance and his abilities out. And unfortunately, we lost him. So it's sad in a way that was the movie he went out on, because it really showed how powerful and how skilled he was. But
but in a weird way too, because it is probably his best performance, I would say.
Yeah.
I think that his two Netflix movies this year, with The Five Bloods, which is a movie that he's not in much of, but it's all about honoring his character,
right?
Character legacy. That combined with his strong, powerful monologue at the end of Ma Rainey and stuff like that, like it sucks that obviously he left at such a young age, but it's a good culmination and I would say he's probably like a front runner for the Oscar for Ma Rainey, depending on what happens within the next couple months, but
I can see that.
It feels a little stagey, a little bit like it's based on the August Wilson play, the 10 play.
As those tend to be.
Yeah,
sometimes.
Like I think Fences was a better adaptation of the August Wilson cycle.
Both from Denzel Washington.
And Viola Davis involved is a really powerhouse. And Glenn Furman in Ma Rainey, I would like to see him. He was, the guy from Cooley High. He's been around for 50 years. He is he's really good too. It'd be nice to see him.
No, yeah, everybody was good in that one, and you know, the historical aspect of it was also interesting to me.
Yeah, yeah. Also, the only August Wilson play I think that features Ma Rainey was a real person. Um,
Right.
you know,
Yeah. No, absolutely. And other than that, we didn't really talk about Mank. I liked Mank.
yeah,
Um, I mean, I don't know if it would make my best of a year list, but I thought it was good because I, you know, the Hollywood history is something I've always been interested in, and I thought that Gary Oldman's performance was really well done, and you know, it's certainly worth checking out. You know, black and white movie, all about Citizen Kane. So you know, if you're into that sort of thing, I absolutely recommend it.
yeah. I think we both feel the same kind of way. Like I'm on board with the concept for it and stuff, but then there are times where it definitely feels like this is a movie about the old movies, and like
Yeah.
there are times where it feels a little artificial, and like the way they're doing like the mono sound and the cigarette burns, like in the actual film, even though it's not actually shot on film, it's all artificial.
Right. Right. Right.
But that kind of idea, and like there are certain scenes where it just feels like name dropping to remind you that it's 1940. So
Sure.
where I feel like David Fincher, I'm like, no, I know it's written by his late father. That's why he made this movie. But yeah, it's and Amanda Seyfried is really good.
She
Um,
is, and I'm sure she'll be. I
yeah,
don't, you know.
Charles Dance, right? Charles Dance.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm sure she'll be mentioned in the awards conversations as that unfolds. But I think that pretty much wraps it up, right, Eric?
yeah.
We
I feel
talked
like.
about a lot of different movies.
Did you feel like when putting your list together, I feel like I did like I don't really like having one dominant streamer, like because I feel like
Right,
Netflix is because I like Crip Camp is a really good doc.
right.
There are a bunch of other ones, but I felt like, oh, there are too many Netflix things, or there's too many, and I feel like that's going to become more and more of an issue as we move forward, where they seem to be.
It's going to be harder for things to get noticed.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Pieces of a Woman is another interesting movie out that's on Netflix as well.
Yeah, I need
Uh,
to watch that one.
yeah, yeah, but it'll be interesting to see what happens in the HBO Max is going to have a new movie for us like every month. Netflix is going to have a new movie for us every week.
Every week, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So
So it'll be a packed year, and if you have any movies that you think we should have mentioned or ones you feel strongly about for any reasons, please let us know in the comments, and we will see you next week. Right, well, for Eric, my name is Chad, and we will see you next week.